I have a neighbor who is learning JavaScript in an advanced placement class in her school and teaching a student JavaScript. I would say would be harder than teaching them Python. But anyway, that's what the course is doing. She's using something called studio.code.org, and it seems like a pretty good methodology for teaching students. However, I'm not sure it provides the big picture yet for why people want to learn JavaScript. So I put this little tutorial together to maybe give her and other students a hand with HTML and JavaScript. So let's get started. So first of all, what do we see in here? This is a web server that I set up here at home. And it's simply a server like any web server on the internet. This is an IP address here, which is the address inside my house of the server. And quickly here, I'll show you the server real quick. We can go to the server like this. And anything that's running on the server with a document root where this stuff goes, so here is this file called index.html, and that's the same file we're working on right here. That's index.html right there. You can see it said index.html. So that's the file that the web server is going to execute and show us this output here. And we can refresh this by using the refresh button, and we'll have to learn how to hold down the shift key and hit this reset circular button here to refresh this code. So now we know that we can serve this to ourselves on our own web server. So let us change a few things. So since we're running HTML here, you can see that right here it says learn JavaScript. And sure enough, that's coming out right there. And then we're making a paragraph here in HTML. So this part is HTML code. There's no JavaScript here yet. And here we're making just a paragraph. And so when you make a paragraph, you're going to use this little P, and then you can give the paragraph an ID. So the identification is a string, or it's a label, or it's a name, where you can call this paragraph here from JavaScript. Okay, so when you run JavaScript then in HTML, you can put it between these two HTML tags called script and script, and that will automatically run JavaScript. So when you come down here and see this thing called script, this tag, it will immediately then start running and expect you to have JavaScript all down here. So that's how that works. And once you're in JavaScript, you can comment things with a // So all these things here are called comments, and you put comments in your JavaScript code to help people understand, maybe a teacher who's grading your assignment, or another student, or yourself later on when you want to figure out what you did. You add comments. Okay, so this one will start running JavaScript. And the first thing we do is we use this constant. Now, a constant is a variable that you can't change. So let's first of all talk about variables. A variable is a place to put things and refer to them later. So if you had a gym locker at school, and say you put 5 shoe boxes that shoes came into the gym locker, you could say that in the gym locker then you have 5 variables, which are the shoe boxes, and those are just places to put things. You could put shoes in the boxes. You can put in an iPhone, you could put in your lunch if you wanted, a lunch bag. You could put in a book. Doesn't matter. The shoebox will hold whatever you put in it. But with a simple variable, you can only put one thing in that box. There are other variables in JavaScript where you can put in many things into a variable. But for now, we'll think of a variable as a shoebox, a place you can store things. So then what we're doing here is, and this is a little complex, is we have a paragraph up here in HTML that we've called, this little p makes the paragraph happen. It's a paragraph tag. All these tags begin with some tag name, and they end with a name with a slash before it. So the slash before it means end of tag. So each tag needs a beginning right here and an end. And the same with the JavaScript tag. It has a beginning called script and an end called /script. All right, so this is very simple HTML up here. We just define a paragraph right here, and we give it an ID called myPara. And so down here, when this executes this stuff and it prints out this stuff here, and it finally hits the JavaScript, it'll start running JavaScript code. It'll bypass all the comments and not worry about those. And the first thing it's going to do, it's going to say, hey, I want to get something that'll help me find this paragraph up here so I can refer to the paragraph in JavaScript. So now we're in JavaScript, and we're going to make a variable. So picture this variable as a shoebox, and we're going to take one of the shoeboxes, and we're going to call that shoebox my name. So you've taken a magic marker, and you've written on the outside of the shoebox my name on that shoebox. And inside that shoebox, you're going to put a slip of paper, and the slip of paper has the name John written on it. And that's basically a variable. It's a place to put something. So again, we got a shoebox called my name, and we put a name in it called John, and we've written John on a piece of paper and thrown that in the shoebox. And so here I have another example written down in comments, in JavaScript code comments. And I'll say a variable is much like your high school locker in the hallway. If you had 5 shoe boxes in your locker and had written things on the shoe boxes like tennis shoes, and the other box fancy shoes, and the next box dress shoes. So that would be basically 3 variables. You can put anything into the boxes you want. Now, how can we make this real to you? Okay, well, let's do it. So a variable is like a shoebox. So we would basically say the variable starts always with var, because var simply means that the next thing we say here, something here we say, is going to be the name of the variable. So var means the next thing is the name of the variable. So what did we say here? We had 5 shoe boxes, and we want one that says tennis shoes. Okay, so we're going to say this variable is going to be called tennis shoes. Like that. And then every time you declare a variable, you put an equal sign down, because this is like what is going into the shoebox. You take a lid off the shoebox, and whatever is here, you're going to put into the shoebox, okay? So tennis shoes. What are we going to put in the tennis shoes shoebox? Well, we could put in Nike shoes, okay? So we'll say we'll put in Nikes. Now, this is called a string because it's a string of characters. Think about a necklace with beads on it. You have a string of pearls or a string of, I don't know, something pretty. So that's what this is, a string of letters and a space, and it's called Nike shoes. So these Nike shoes go into the tennis shoes shoebox, and in they go. And everything we do in JavaScript, we end in a semicolon. So we have a variable we've just made called tennis shoes. This is the name of the variable, and this is what's in the variable. All right, now we're going to make another variable here. And what's the next one we're going to make here? Fancy shoes. Okay, so we'll say var fancy shoes. And variables are named always with something which is not, there's no spaces. So you can't put spaces in a variable name. You have to use like an underscore or something, but don't make spaces. That'll be illegal. It'll make a syntax error. And now you always put an equal sign, and fancy shoes might be Gucci shoes. Okay, so we put those in the other shoe box called fancy shoes, and always a semicolon. And the next variable is the next thing we want to have, which is called dress shoes. So these are all variables. And what's a good set of dress shoes going to be called? I don't know. Let's just call them black loafers or something like that. And now we're going to end that with a semicolon. So now we have 3 variables. Now these variables aren't really too useful yet because they're here, but you want to be able to see them, and we'll talk about that later. So how can we see these variables? Well, we can make an alert, and that would put it right in your face. So if I now execute this code, it's not going to change anything because these variables aren't really doing anything. They've been declared, they've been made. We put the Nike shoes and the Gucci shoes and the black loafers into these variables, but we're not pulling them out and we're not displaying them. So we'll run this program again by hitting the shift key and the refresh, and nothing is happening. But okay, what if I want to say, let's look in the tennis shoes box and see what's in there. There's something in JavaScript called an alert. So you can say alert and then put in what you want to put in the alert, and that puts up a pop-up. So watch how this works. We'll grab the tennis shoes shoebox and we want to see what's in it. So we're going to copy that to here. And now we're going to run the program again and watch how this works. An alert comes up and it says Nike shoes. So this alert here has put up a pop-up and it says you have Nike shoes in those shoebox. So that's a hint. Whenever you want to see what's in your variable, you can use an alert and put the variable name in here and see what's inside the variable, okay, or the shoebox. So there's Nike shoes in there. We could do the same thing with the fancy shoes or the dress shoes. So let's put in dress shoes. And in fact, you can do things like add these together. So I could say tennis shoes, and I could say add it together with fancy shoes, and watch what happens. So I have 2 variables now in the alert, and if I run the program, you'll see it'll kind of get scrunched together, but watch how this works. So it'll say I got Nike shoes and I got Gucci shoes. Now it scrunched those together because we didn't put a space in there. So now you can put a space in by adding a plus key. So we're adding strings together. And this is kind of fun, right? So we'll put a little string in here of space. And now watch what happens. You'll see that your variables being printed out with the alert are going to have a space in there, okay? So that's how to do those variables. Now, let's now comment out the alert because it's a little bit aggravating. So we're going to do // to comment the alert out. And that means now the alert is not going to show because there's a comment in front. If you turn an alert or something, some kind of code to a comment, it doesn't execute. So if we do a refresh now, you'll see nothing happens because the comment is, the alert is commented out. If we uncomment now by taking the 2 slashes away, you'll see the alert will come back just like this. See how that works? So this is basic JavaScript stuff for the programmer, okay? So, or the student. Okay, now we've commented that out. Okay, now, what about this paragraph? We've had this little paragraph called myPara up here. It's been declared in JavaScript. That's myPara. And myPara is showing up right here. It's saying, hello, this paragraph is created in HTML. Okay, so where's that made? Right here. It's made in HTML. And so how can we change that in JavaScript? We really want to change it, right? So how can we change it? Well, we first have to name it something in HTML, so we gave it a name, myPara. And then we have to kind of snoop around and use some JavaScript to figure out, okay, where is that paragraph? And we use its name as identification, and that will set well, not really a variable, but it'll set a storage place called para. And so being a constant, it's not a variable, it's a constant, meaning that this is like one of your variable shoe boxes in your locker that you can put the location of this paragraph into that shoe box, and then you put a lock on it so that this cannot ever be changed again. And that's what a constant is. It's a variable that can't be changed. So what would happen if we write out this thing here and we try to make an alert out of it? Well, I don't know what's going to happen, but that's part of what you do with programming. You figure things out on your own. So let's try that out. It probably won't do anything great, but or it'll be something, an object. But let's try it. So now we have a constant called para, and we're going to make an alert out of it. See what it says. That's how you figure out what's in a variable or constant. So now we're going to refresh the program, which will run the program. And what does it say? Okay, look at that. It says it's an object called an HTML paragraph element. So how cool is that? Now we know that we have a paragraph element. So what we put in that constant actually found the paragraph from the HTML. So that is pretty darn cool. Okay, now we know that works, so we can comment out the alert. And now we've made a variable here called John. So this would be like a 6th shoebox in your locker. And we've got a magic marker, and we wrote my name on that shoebox. And inside the shoebox, we put a slip of paper with the name John on it. Okay, and we've studied this pretty well now, but what we want to do is then write John to that paragraph. Okay, so this is commented out, but if I, as you know now, if I take these 2 slashes off, this will become live JavaScript code. So now we'll change the paragraph to my name, okay? And my name is what? It's a variable. You look back here and you figure out, what is my name? And it's called John. This variable was declared as John. So shoebox and locker. Shoebox has my name on it. We stuffed a piece of paper called John in there for the name. Okay, and now we want to pull the name out and put the name into a paragraph. So it's almost like we're going to open the shoebox and stuff the piece of paper on the screen in a paragraph. All right? So let's try that out. We've changed the paragraph, and it won't do anything until we alert it. So let's do an alert on that, and you'll see what happens. Actually, this would change the paragraph, so take a look. Here's the paragraph right here, and it's written that way because HTML wrote it that way up here, right here. But now we're going to use JavaScript, and we're going to change the paragraph. So it's almost like there's a shoebox in your locker with a paragraph. Well, no, not really. This is an HTML. I'm not sure where this is stored, but let's not worry about that now. We're just going to run this now and watch what happens. Okay, so it changed it to John because here we name it this right here in the paragraph. This is a paragraph right there. And down here we have a variable called John, my name. And then down here we're going to make that paragraph, and we're going to throw the name John into it. So it's almost like we've taken the piece of paper John out of the shoebox in your locker, and we've pasted that now on to the paragraph, which might have been on the blackboard, who knows. Okay, and we could also put an alert up here too. So you'll see if I uncomment the alert, it's going to also print John on the screen. Let's try that out. And you'll see it work. Okay, so that pulled that out of the variable. It took off the lid, emptied the box, and there's the contents, the piece of paper with John on it. Okay, so what does that leave? For the more professional programmers, there are ways to see what JavaScript is doing. And so I would not feel right if I didn't tell you how to work this stuff. So let's take the alert off right now. And the curious student might wonder, what does console.log do? Well, this will log it to a special log inside the web browser, okay? And let's say test123, which I'm doing here, and then we're going to add the variable here, my name, and see what happens, okay? And what is my name? My name was assigned to what? That, okay? So the console.log, how do we find the console.log? Okay, here's how we do it. And I'm going to save the program here. How do we find the console.log? We are using Chrome browser. Okay, do you see it's using Chrome? And now we go to the dots over here on the right here, and we click them once. And we're going to say here, more tools right here. And then we're going to say developer tools. And look what happens. There's the test123 right there. You would think it would say John in there too, right? So let's refresh the program here. Hold down the Shift key and hit the refresh button here. And there's the John. So we have this log now, this console.log. The console.log will put things here under the tab called console. And there's John right there. Now, what else could we do with that? Well, we could empty the shoe boxes in our locker, and those were these things here, right? So we could take these, like tennis shoes, fancy shoes, and dress shoes. We could say, what's in the fancy shoes box? And we'll try and log those in the console.log. So I copied that, and we'll go down here, and we'll say console.log. And you could type in a message for yourself, like what, whoops, here. You can say, what was in the fancy shoes box? And then you could say the answer. And you put a plus sign here, and you say fancy shoes, the variable fancy shoes. And see how this understands that we already have a variable called fancy shoes. This is Microsoft Visual, what is it, VS Code, Microsoft Visual Studio Code. Handy program for doing this kind of work. All right, so we can save the program and run it. I think this is doing an autosave to the web server, so we can just do a refresh on it. So now we're still looking at the log here, and we'll do a refresh. And look what it says. What was in the fancy shoes box? Gucci shoes, okay. And now it says, where was this printed out in the index file? So there's the index file. It came off of line 65, 66, and 67. And if you look here, sure enough, line 65, 66, and 67. So that's pretty cool, right? And then you could actually then hit this, I think, and watch the code. Let's see. Okay, there's the code, and we could expand this down. So your web browser always knows your JavaScript code, and there it is. That's pretty much the whole shebang. All right, I hope this helped somebody learn about variables and maybe get through some initial learning on JavaScript. So that's the purpose of this little course, and I hope you found it nice. Take care and have a nice day. Good luck on your tests.